Hi, I'm Kathleen Jasper, and today we are talking about backward design when we are lesson planning. This will help you plan your lessons, but it'll also help you in your teacher interview because your principal might want to hear this type of language in the interview. Let's get started. All right. So one of the things I talk about in my new book, Teach: A Survival Guide for New Educators, is how to plan your instruction, because I think this is something that we don't get training on. We kind of get thrown into a classroom with the keys and a teacher edition of the textbook, and they say, good luck, and that's it. So how can we plan effectively for our classroom instruction? Well, I was taught early on, and it really was beneficial to me, is how to use backward design when we are planning our instruction. So here's what you do first. You want to think about the end, not the lesson. The lesson is the during. The lesson is what we're going to do in the moment. I want to think about the outcomes I want, the end. What's my goal? Well, the good thing is you don't have to come up with the goal on your own. The goal is done for you by the state. Mastery of the state standards is the goal. So what you want to do is have a look at your state standards. Now, I often talk about this. I had no idea what a state standard was when I started teaching. Nobody told me I was supposed to teach the standards. I literally had no training, but I learned later that that was something that was very important, especially after my first walkthrough from my assistant principal. She was like, "Are you teaching to the standards?" And from that day on, I made sure I was. So one of the things you want to do is find the standards for your content area or your grade level or whatever, and map them out. Now, a lot of districts have a curriculum map for you already with the 10 or 15 standards you have to meet for quarter one, 10 or 15 standards for quarter two, quarter three, and quarter four. And by the end, you have met all of the standards. Your district may not have that. What you want to do is just chunk out the standards, divide by 4, take them all, divide by 4, and see where you need to be each quarter. Some of the standards are repetitive, but you want to have an overarching understanding of what the students need to be successful, especially if you teach a content area where they take a test at the end of the year, like English language arts, math, social studies, etc. So first things first, start with the standards. Okay, let's just go with the first 9 weeks. I've got my 10 standards for the first 9 weeks. Now I'm going to break them up into 9 or 10 lesson plans, right? Because 9 weeks, 9 lesson plans, weekly lesson plans. So I might take 1 standard a week, and that's my outcome. All right. So that standard is my goal. I want every student to be able to do this thing. All right. Step number 1, outcome driven. What do I want the kids to do? Step number 2 in backward design is, well, how will I know that they mastered it? Here comes the assessments. So you're going to pick what assessments you're going to use to figure that out. Now, it does not have to be a formal thing. You don't have to, write all these high-tech assessments. You could say, I'm going to do a writing assignment at the end of the week to see if they got it. Maybe your standard is about complete sentences, a subject and a predicate, and maybe you want to have a worksheet at the end of the week where students write complete sentences. It could be as simple as that. It could be a reading fluency exercise. It could be a comprehension exercise. It could be something bigger. It could be a chapter test. Maybe that week you're having a chapter test. Whatever it is, find those assessments. That's step number 2. How will you know that they met that standard? And then step number 3, the last step, is plan the lesson. Now that I know my goal, now that I know how I will measure if they met that goal, now I can get into the what are we going to do that week in terms of the lesson plan. And that's really, really important, because if you start with the lesson plan, your outcomes are like driven by what happens in the lesson, when really the outcome is the goal. That shouldn't change. The lessons can change, but the goal should not change. And so that's why we use backward design. You'll see it on your teacher certification exams for sure. There will be some sort of mention of it. It's always like start with the standards first. Make sure you're assessing students and using that data. And then, of course, planning the lessons. And that'll really help you. Just try it out. And again, all of this takes a lot of practice. If you're a brand new teacher and you're just learning what standards are, You're not going to be able to come up with the best lesson plan ever written and the best backward design ever executed. You're going to have to practice. So start with week 1, maybe do a couple weeks ahead. You can always adjust your lessons. In fact, your lesson plan should be flexible so that you can adjust for what students need. If you mess up, if they mess up, if you left something out, you got to be able to go back and change it. So your plan should be flexible. Don't be married to any one plan. It's okay. There's going to be a fire drill. Some kid might get sick in the classroom. I mean, anything can derail your day. You know that. So be flexible and keep practicing this method. Start with the standards, choose your assessments, plan the lesson. And I promise you, those gains will go up. Your students will start to get better. Now, when it comes to the interview, you may want to reference backwards design in your interview because your principal might really like that. So you might say something like, I'm a brand new teacher. I've never taught before, but I've been learning a lot about backwards design. I read Kathleen Jasper's book, Teach, a Survival Guide for New Educators. And I learned that backwards design is really going to help my students and me get to that goal of standards mastery. Music to the principal's ears. Trust me. They hear that. Oh my gosh, this person deserves the job. Hire him or her immediately. I promise you, use those words and practices. You can't just say it in the interview. Use those words and practices in your classroom, and it will work wonders for you getting your job and impacting students in a positive way. Let me know what you think in the comments. Good luck out there and have a great day. Bye.